This movie, Blood Diamond, depicts, obviously it's, as you mentioned, dramatized. It is a Hollywood film. Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the stars of this movie. But when they show the mine, like, yeah, a lot of these guys are working with using their hands, and they are watched over by armed guards. And the whole plot of this movie is this guy working in the mine steals a diamond, and the guy who was supervising him, the owner of that area, whatever, he's basically trying to kill him throughout the whole movie and get the diamond back, right? And you know, that's life for many people, sadly. Right. And so that's just a little article or idea on stewardship. And you know, now the modern kind of issue with this would be, so on that same note of stewardship and you know, taking care of the environment, biggest thing now that they're trying to do in terms of climate change is they're trying to go from gas-powered cars to what kind of cars? Electric, right? Well, all those electric cars, they rely on batteries, right? A lot of the batteries need cobalt, right? They need other minerals that are very hard to get and not found in many places. So the modern issue now, rather than your iPhone, is, well, how are we going to get all these minerals for these batteries? How can everyone in North America and Europe and China and other parts of South America and wherever, how are we all supposed to drive these electric cars? Like, do we even have the resources for those batteries? Are we comfortable as a society saying that, you know what, climate change is much more important than improving the quality of life of the humans already alive? You know, our you know, you kids were just watching a climate change documentary in Science yesterday, some of you. I don't know, did you watch that Mr. Murphy and Mr. Park's class as well? I know Miss Udit's class, you guys watched it. Right? You know, a lot of those goals are very far into the future. You know, our government has made some goals that dramatically impact the lives of people right now, for the worse, to make a very small change, potentially small change, 50 to 100 years from now. You know, so the question is like, hey, should we make everyone here right now miserable and have terrible lives to potentially make the future slightly better? Or should we perhaps do something for millions, billions of people, really millions, hundreds of millions of people, and try to improve their life and their quality of life? Because things are pretty great for us, right? Sure, you might be depressed, but like, you know, change your mindset or take your medication, whichever one. Okay. But for many people who live in abject poverty and just live terrible lives, like, how do you improve that, right? And not that that's really a problem for you to solve, right? It's just a conversation to be had. Yes, now you want to go. Washroom or water? Just leave the door open. Here's a little article on sustainability. We can look through this as well. This kind of ties in with that idea of stewardship, sustainability as well, and how what role do governments play. This is a news release. This is the Government of Canada website. This is from 2022, so it's very recent. So electric vehicles not only help keep our air clean, they can help families save money on monthly bills too. Rising and unpredictable world oil prices and the growing desire by Canadians to lower their environmental footprints has more household and businesses looking to get off the gasoline and diesel roller coaster by making the switch to zero-emission vehicles. It's fascinating how they structure this argument. When Canadians go to buy a new car, the Government of Canada is taking action to put more ZEVs on the road. Today, the Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, I don't know if that's how you say his name, and Minister of Environment and Climate Change, announced that the Government of Canada has published proposed regulations that set ZEV sales targets for manufacturers and importers of new passenger cars, SUVs, pickups. So basically, any company that sells vehicles is going to have new laws put on them. The regulations will require that at least 20% of new vehicles, so 1 in every 5 new vehicles sold in Canada, will be zero emissions by 2026, which is 3 years away. Well, 2 years away, really. It's years over. 60%, so 3 out of every 5 cars by 2030, and 5 out of 5 cars, every car by 2035. These targets will help increase supply so that more Canadians who want a ZEV can buy one. In addition to making sure there are more ZEVs to buy, the government also announced the following investments to make buying and charging an electric vehicle easier for Canadians. 50,000 more EV charging stations across Canada. Renewed program that provides Canadians up to $5,000 toward the cost of buying or leasing a vehicle. 180,000 individuals and businesses have taken advantage of this program to date. Making historic investments in EV manufacturing in Canada, which will mean made in Canada ZEVs by Canadian auto workers and for Canadian drivers to buy. Okay. The evidence from Quebec, British Columbia, and other jurisdictions with ZEV sales targets in place is clear. When combined with supportive investments, a zero-emission vehicle sales target accelerates the transition to clean cars and trucks. It also provides certainty to the private sector to support investments in charging infrastructure. With today's proposed regulations, Canada joins jurisdictions such as the EU, the United Kingdom, and several American states, including California. The shift to zero-emission vehicles is good for our workers, for our automotive, battery, and mining supply chains, and for our economy, creating jobs and prosperity for generations of workers to come. The shift is good for our environment, keeping our air clean. Canadians are invited to submit their feedback on this. Whatever this is already passed. So again, this is coming down to things that you'll emphasize more in grade 12, where some systems have a lot more government influence and control and others do not. Okay. Here, the government is basically making a decision for all the consumers, for all of you, that, hey, you have no choice by 2035, which is, about 11 years away. So how old would you be, 2035? You'd be 27. No, wait, you'd be
47.
27.
No, I'd be 7.
In 11 years, hopefully you'll be more than 17.
Oh, wait.
Okay. You'll be 27, which is how old I am now. Okay, so by that time, if these government legislations continue to go through, you won't even have the choice of buying a gas-powered car. You'll have to potentially buy a car with a battery that's electric. Part of the problems with that, they kind of did this in California, is that a lot of those charging stations, the electricity comes from coal-fired power plants. Coal is really terrible for the environment. It's better to burn gasoline, right? So there are complications. And then what we already discussed, that where do all these minerals come from? Like, are we opening up new mines in Canada to look for cobalt? Doesn't seem so, because mines are really terrible for the environment, for releasing carbon dioxide into the planet. It's pretty complicated, right? You can't just have your make-believe wish come true, right? It has to be practical and logical and make sense. Here's a quote by Stephen Guilbault. This is the Minister of Environment and Climate Change's person is still in office. Zero-emission vehicles are where the rubber hits the road for cost-conscious Canadians who want to help the environment while getting off the roller coaster of high gasoline prices. One could argue that gas prices are really high due to carbon taxes as well that the government's putting in place. With Canada's deep experience in auto parts manufacturing, vehicle assembly, and with all of the critical minerals needed for batteries found here, Canada is well positioned to be a leader in making the vehicles that the world is looking to drive. With ZEVs, we can cut pollution, create jobs, and make life more affordable for families across the country, right? And that second part, it's not that he's wrong. Like, it'd be great if we were innovating vehicles, we were producing those minerals, offering jobs, and creating revenue for Canada as a whole, right? That improves our economic state. But are we doing all of that? Or is the government just setting rules and regulations on what you can buy and sell as a consumer and what is available to you, but not necessarily doing the supply side of things, right? That goes into stewardship and sustainability. Is just pulling those minerals out of Africa the most sustainable thing to do, the most responsible and careful thing to do? Perhaps, perhaps not, right? Oops. Last couple of slides here, just looking at some information graphics, just to help you understand. So there's a lot of different minerals that go into your phone. for those of you who can see, hopefully, have you kids done chemistry yet? Okay, so you looked at the periodic table of elements, right? Some of these you'll recognize, some of them you won't, but some of the electronics, a lot of nickel gets used. There's magnesium being used as well. Those are things you should recognize. What else? There's lithium as well, which goes into the battery, cobalt and nickel as well, right? These are some of the minerals, the elements that you're seeing in there again. I don't remember where all these blue ones came from, but they're probably in the weird part of the periodic table. I doubt you kids really do any questions involving those chemicals and elements. Okay. Some vital metals used to build these devices are considered at risk due to geological scarcity, geopolitical issues, or trade policy, right? So they're basically saying some are rare, right? They just don't occur a lot. Geopolitical issues, so maybe some countries won't allow for the mining and acquiring these resources. And trade policies, some people just might have some issues set up, right? They're not willing to trade or sell, whatever. The infographic details the critical metals that you carry in your pocket. So it seems like red, the red is kind of the worst, the orange is next, and then that light one perhaps. No, never mind, that's something else, Ignore that, okay? So there's a lot of different materials that go into the cell phone, right? We'll talk about that. But in terms of resource development, so